What's the weirdest rule you had in your home growing up? I wasn't allowed to put sugar in my tea because my mum told me that when you go to prison they don't let you have sugar. So it will makes prison that much harder. 1. Thanks for having so much faith in me, mum. 2. I'm pretty sure you are allowed sugar for your tea in prison. At my friend's house they had a no pizza bullying rule. There were 3 teenage brothers and when they ordered pizzas, at least a couple larges, tempers flared quickly when people would try to grab as many slices as they could. The first rule in place was that you couldn't have more than 1 slice at a time. And you could grab another once you had the last bite in your mouth. But one of the brothers quickly figured it out that if you ball up a slice he could fit it in his mouth and grab another one. Hence, no pizza bullying. Edit 1. Spelling and stuff. Edit 2. To be clear, I'm not endorsing this as a good idea. It's just a thing I saw happen. When the pizza box was about to hit the table, the only thing the mom said was, remember, no pizza bullying. Which was so confusing for me. For about 5 seconds. My dad made up a rule to stop my big brother from asking about getting a dog every 10 seconds. We had neighbors on both sides who had dogs. So the rule was that only every other house could have a dog. My brother believed it for a long time. If the dare officer at school shows you something and it smells familiar, say nothing. I will explain it later. Also, if mom's room smells like incense, it is the best time to ask for something. We had silverware with roses on it. Our thumbs had to be on the rose when we used the utensils or we'd have to practice after dinner. Utensils couldn't make any noise against your teeth or you'd have to practice after dinner. My house was a real ball of laughs growing up. We could watch Freddy movies but not Jason movies. BC My mom thought Friday the 13th was satanic but Nightmare on Elm Street movies were just for fun. I wasn't allowed to drink the milk left over after eating cereal. Never really got an explanation but my dad would yell if I tried. Edit. Wow, never thought my weird childhood rule would get this much attention. Couple of things. I once asked and all I got was it's gross as an answer. We were not a prim and proper type family. No, I am not lactose intolerant. And unfortunately my dad suddenly passed away a few years back, so I can't ask him for an explanation now that I'm an adult. I guess the world will never truly know. I wasn't allowed to make noise. If I spoke above a mumble I was being surly. If I was playing it could not be audible outside of my shut bedroom door. If I was cleaning, which I usually was, then I couldn't make noise while doing it. The consequences varied. Usually being screamed at, having something thrown just past my head, or having something I value taken away. My brother did not have the same restrictions. He's always been an avid musician. Played video games at full volume. Cracked jokes and was generally encouraged to speak up. The only time he had the same rules was when our mother was on the phone, which was pretty often. I don't resent him for being treated better and he frequently advocated for me. Now I have some interesting quirks. I can wash dishes in complete silence. I still leave drawers and cabinet doors slightly ajar. I sneak up on people at work by accident. If people are watching TV with me I have to remember to turn up the volume for them. There are days when I can't handle the sound of turning on the shower or running the vacuum cleaner. I have a decimeter app on my phone and frequently check to see how much noise I'm making. I even sneeze silently. But I blast the radio in my car and through my headphones. Yes, I'm in therapy. Edit. Row. Thank you all for all the gilding and thoughtful responses. I'm glad some of you found humor in my story. It's okay to laugh at the absurdity of it. A few things to add based on those responses. You can't vacuum silently, but you can get on your hands and knees with a large scrub brush and brush the debris out of carpet. The answer below as to how to wash dishes silently is accurate based on my experience. Yes, I have been to the Race Ed Narcissist sub. It is helpful at times, but I am pretty far along in the healing process now. People there are still coming to terms with things I dealt with 10 years ago. Yes. I'm a woman. That was a factor. For sure. I was also unwanted. My mother had already decided to divorce my father when she got pregnant with me. She has implied she wasn't a willing participant in that process. Which I actually believe. Also, my brother didn't have it easy. His experiences were just different but not necessarily better. My father was terrible but mostly absent. He died badly a few years ago. I didn't go to the funeral. I don't speak to my mother unless absolutely necessary. Abuse doesn't end when you turn 18. It turned into financial abuse, and she was also abusive to my child until I cut contact. My mother had a horrific childhood, and by all accounts our experience was an improvement on that. I do think she did the best she could with the information she had. I don't wish her any harm. I had a stepdad for a while. He was clueless. Somewhat of an asshole. And also being abused by her. He still taught me how to function and created some stability. There were other adults who tried to help with varying levels of success. CPS was involved at one point, but she outsmarted them. Those limited interactions with adults who clearly cared, had healthy boundaries, and treated me appropriately for my age made all the difference. So if you're witnessing something similar and can't act directly to correct the situation, do that. You are actually helping. I was never allowed to leave a drink in the car because, according to my mother, someone could poison it. She's always been overly paranoid about safety. But that one is my favorite. The only movies we could watch on Sunday were 1. Bambi, and 2. The Sound of Music. Edit. Just answering some recurring questions. Yes. I was raised Mormon. We weren't allowed to watch religious movies that weren't LDS. We were allowed to watch an LDS film called The Other Side of Heaven, but the disc was scratched. We were not allowed to use the front door. Ever. There was a metal screen on it with a deadbolt that needed a key for either side. My stepdad kept the key, and even visitors had to go to the back through the side gate. Edit. My stepdad told us only cops use the front door. Anyone who came to the front was automatically suspect of him. We were to never answer the door to strangers for this reason. All of our friends' visitors were to go through the back. We couldn't say the word fart. Ever. It was up there with FCK and SHT as far as bad words. Edit. This broke my notifications on Bacon Reader Send Help. Wasn't me but my neighbor. When my dad would come home from work, my friend would have to go home. His parents told him that because that meant it was dinner time and therefore he should come home. Him being a child didn't grasp that portion of the rule. He only understood come home when my dad gets home. This translated in my friend being terrified of my father. If he saw my dad turning into the driveway, he would drop whatever we were doing and sprint home. If my dad would make it home and get out of the car, he would cry and run home. Somehow in his head, my father was bad. It took some time before my friend was comfortable around my father. No touching the pets. We had a sweet little Bichon Lhasa mix that would beg for cuddles in the best tuxedo cat ever. Fuck you, mom and dad. You psychotic fucks. I cuddled the shitty out those critters every time you weren't around. I wasn't allowed to wear my hat backwards. My dad thought that it was a gang thing. Mind you, this was in rural Wisconsin in the 90s. My parents are wonderful people. Just may not have had the best understanding of the world at that time. If you come home at night and the door's locked, even if I have a key, find somewhere else to sleep. You don't use save on the computer, you always use savers, because if you don't you could delete everyone's information on the computer. I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons. Most other stuff they didn't care about thought it did not make sense. For some reason I couldn't say crap, but it was okay to say sh, and ass. This was around the time I was 11/12. No singing at the dinner table. This rule was frequently broken. We couldn't eat supper until dad got home from work, even if it was 9 p.m. My grandmother said not to sh tea during a lightning storm because a bolt of lightning might strike the pipe and electrocute me. Wasn't allowed to watch anything with a black person in a prominent role. My dad was super racist, so I missed out on everything from That's So Raven to Fresh Prince. Even Dora got a hard pass. Jeez and gosh were banned because they sounded kinda like Jesus and God. So it was considered subtly taking the Lord's name in vain. Wasn't allowed to say shut up because it was a bad word as well. And then one day my mom told me to shut up. We weren't allowed to celebrate Halloween because it was the devil's holiday. We weren't even allowed to go to school that day in order to avoid the festivities. They told us the Halloween candy was cursed so we wouldn't eat it. In the night we turned off the lights and hid in terror. It was unsafe to go outside in case a Satanist kidnapped us to sacrifice to the devil. Also, Pokemon was considered demonic. Felt bad for watching it, but couldn't resist. My dad allowed me to have a bed, 5 outfits, hygiene products, and a Bible. That's it. His wife would make my sister and I sit on towels on the couch because we smelled like shit. My stepmom would send strongly worded emails to my mom regarding my overconsumption of yogurt at their house. Man oh man. Just reading through some of these responses makes me even more appreciative that my parents weren't f***ing crazy. I wasn't allowed to be friends with my younger brother's friends. Like I was going to steal them. My parents are awesome, but I have some weird cousins. When I was younger my parents went on a short anniversary trip, leaving me and siblings with my older cousin to watch us. She is the same age as my parents. I remember one morning turning on Magic School Bus, and she frantically grabs the remote from me and turns it off. She then proceeds to go on a lecture on how witchcraft is a sin, and made by Satan himself, and that Magic School Bus is one of those sinful abominations. I couldn't f***ing believe it. Turns out her kid wasn't allowed to watch anything like that. Harry Potter, Magic School Bus, Wizards of Waverly Place, some of the many things that apparently are just a gateway to joining a satanic cult. Her sister held the same beliefs. My dad had diverticulosis, pockets in the intestine, and couldn't eat sesame seeds, among other things. When we would eat fast food sandwiches, everyone had to give their bottom buns to dad, in exchange for his top buns. So all my life I grew up eating burgers with 2 top seeded buns. This was never explained, and it was from before I born. So it was literally when I was in college that I realized that it wasn't normal. I thought it was just dad privileged him to have 2 bottom buns. For a while my mom had us go to public school in the city she worked in and used my stepdad's business address. She was so scared about being caught that we weren't allowed to have friends. This lasted for 6 years. My mother was very abusive. She was also an idiot who never followed through with anything in life except for her promises of beating my ass. Double quote. If I ever find out you were fighting in school, I will beat your ass. Double quote. If I ever find out you were letting anybody pick on you, I will beat your ass. Double quote. If I ever find out you're f***ing around in school, I will beat your ass. Double quote. I don't give a shit how sick you are. You're going to school or I will beat your ass. Double quote. If any of your teachers ever call my house, I will beat your ass. Double quote. Ron Howard voice. So, realizing he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't, He found the consistency that teenagers so secretly desire in the fact that his mother would surely beat his ass. Double quote. Parents divorced. Dad's house. We were told to shower when we visited and put our mom's house clothing in a box under the bed after it was cleaned because mom's house was infected. It's called the mom's house box. Later found out my stepmom was paranoid because my dad cheated on my mom and she thought my mom would take revenge somehow. It got crazier than that. My stepmom made us write in journals. Told us to write whatever we wanted. So we did. After 3 years she read it out loud at the dinner table and then punished us for what we wrote. Later she locked me in my room. Called the cops, said I was trying to murder her. Got told to be appreciative of my rich family by a cop. Once I went to school I told them what happened and stepmom got told she wasn't allowed to be on the school property anymore. Dad and I had to move to a different area. My dad hated it when I walked barefoot on the beach. He always wore tennis shoes at the beach. Edit. Lots of interesting comments, you guys. Actually he was from Scotland but had travelled the world, so Lord knows what he might have encountered on some beach somewhere. Hadn't thought about it that way, Nasarosa. Salt was for guests only. The actual use of spices was very looked down on and seen as a huge insult to my mom and dad, even though they were absolutely horrid cooks. When I had someone over I couldn't keep the door closed. But the weird part was when a girl was over, I could keep it closed. A boy had to be open. I wasn't allowed to use tampons. Edit. Whoa. Guess I'm not the only one. What messed up reasoning. My mom had the same reasoning. I stole 2 from her bathroom. She noticed, of course. I got grounded for a month and she threw out everything in my bedroom. You know. Because I was a mean SLT who steals. I was the only girl with a handful of brothers. I was given really weird rules. First time I got my period I got in trouble for interrupting shopping and was made to walk around leaking in the mall. It's been 20 years and I'm still embarrassed. My adopted grandma, Akka, my mom's best elderly friend from community aqua aerobics, would watch my brother and I when my parents were away. Her one household rule was the time you woke her up in the mornings was the equivalent to your bedtime in the PM. So let grandma sleep till 10. You could stay up till 10. Wake her up at 5. You're in bed by 5. If you worked the system well. This was fantastic. I wasn't allowed to do the laundry. Cause I was dirty. I got to college and I had no idea how to wash my own clothes. We walked after every dinner. About a 20-minute walk. Actually a nice habit and get if family time. Sucked when the weather sucked. You had to share a KFC biscuit until you were 10 years old. I was only allowed 1 box of sugar cereal a year. The first week of January was always very exciting. Edited to add. I usually picked Lucky Charms. Sometimes Frosted Flakes. Due to this once a year rule I have never tried many sugar cereals and have no desire to. Now that I am a parent, I let my kids have sugar cereal often. Watching the Three Stooges was banned. My mom said the reason was it glorified violence. I just think she didn't find it funny. My dad insisted I take up a musical instrument when they were first offered in 4th grade. But then demanded that I never practice at home until I got better because he didn't want to hear bad music. No fighting. So my brothers and I made a rule of quiet fighting. We would fight each other with one hand covering our mouths,